What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? Man, that just gets more painful every time I say it after this election.
Especially since I thought we were going to open our beers when you said today, and I was like ready.
You were ready, just
and then
we didn't work on our timing very well. That's my bad. Sorry.
You know, you'd think after 60 or so episodes.
Yeah, we would have this down better.
We'll get them in the next 60.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Somewhere in there.
Anyway, so today we've got Andra back with us. I'm finally saying it right.
Nope.
It is Andra fucking A every goddamn time. I put so much effort into doing it wrong.
You said it so confidently, too.
I know. I was
nailed it.
I was so ready. I was like, yeah, I got it this time, and I'm still so wrong. Andra, man,
yeah. Thanks so much for coming again. Clearly, we didn't traumatize you too much the first time, but
this is just going on to basically be an ongoing.
Or we just come in every couple weeks and
and I mispronounce your name.
And air out the grievances.
And so we've all had our frustrations. If you've tuned in with Andra before, or you watch any of her content, which you absolutely should. It's what I Hope You Find Your Dad.
It's that on TikTok and I think YouTube, and everywhere else is just my first and last name.
So which is
Andra Berghoff. I was gonna leave that up to a scavenger hunt. But...
Oh well, whatever, it happens. Anyway, but you actually were kind of helping out with some of the digital media stuff for not the Democratic Party itself, but some of the organizations and PACs that work with that. So you were kind of on the front side of trying to get out the vote, trying to sort of spread the Democratic message, the Harris Walz message coming into this. Will you just tell us kind of how that went, what that looked like, what you were doing?
It was crazy. So I got contacted by like groups that, of course, work like adjacent to the campaign, and so it was a group that specifically focused on like the swing states and whatnot. So I got to go out to a couple of the various swing states. I went to Arizona, I went to Wisconsin, went to Detroit, whatnot. And we would go on the ground there and we would do a bunch of activities, and they called them activations or whatever the corporate term is.
Sure.
So we would go there, and I liked it a lot because a lot of it was just like getting out the word to register people to vote, almost like in a way that was like unbiased. Like you're just registering people to vote no matter where you're landing there. So especially, but then there were specific ones like in Arizona, obviously, like, what was it, Prop 139 or I should know because I spent like a whole week straight like saying it a million times, but that prop was on the ballot for access to abortion rights. So like we would also focus on getting people educated about that. Door knocking, and then there were some like various other things where they would have like the reproductive rights freedom tour would came through, and we hit that up, and all sorts of other things. And then also they would have other influencers come in, and we'd all get to collab. It was really fun. It was a good time on the ground.
I gotta admit, I was watching from afar, very jealous. I was. Especially when you started doing some of those just random collab videos while you were there. And I'm like, hey, I'm mutuals with that. Hey, I'm mutual. What the fuck? Why am I not there?
Dude, and I feel like the FOMO is no matter where you were. Because we would be in Phoenix, and then we would see, like Walter Masterson or someone was the one who got sent to, like, friggin' Las Vegas that week. And we're like, fucking weird. And the whole time we're like, dude, we're on the C tier list. And everyone else is going to, like, oh. And we're like, we know where we are. Okay, top 500 of the C tier. But...
Well, I mean, at least you got to do it. It seemed like a really fun experience, which has to have made the results of this election that much more frustrating.
It hurt. It definitely hurt. I think it was hard because obviously when you're working inside of it, you also have like access to those teams that are working like closely with them. So you hear a lot more information than what's being told. And I will be honest to a lot of my viewers, like I kept a brave face the whole time. I was very confident. But the news I was hearing was not hopeful.
Like on the ground before the election?
About 2 weeks before, because we would go out and party and stuff to blow off steam. It was crazy. We'd wake up at like 6 a.m. and then we'd go out and be out till like 1, 2 a.m. because it was just like, we were coping, right? Like we were working all day and then we're like, all right, let's go get drunk. Like I can't deal with this right now. Like I literally, so... Obviously, we'd have, like, powwow sessions and be like, spill the tea. Like, what have you heard? What do you know? And there were some kids that were like closer with the numbers and like running the numbers and the polling and the stats and like specifically, you know, talking about like swing states and this district is important and we need this and what are the numbers here and there. And from what I had heard, I mean, we always knew it was an uphill battle the whole time.
Yeah.
It was a long shot. And the moment she got picked, I wasn't super hopeful because I was like, we have 3 months to run this campaign and we chose a Black woman, which is going to be a really hard sell.
And I want to keep pointing this out because I think this goes back to even the Hillary campaign too. And, you know, we focus a lot on women being an uphill battle, which it absolutely is. There's tons of people out there who will just simply not vote for a woman no matter what. But these are all people who ran in presidential primaries before who lost their original presidential primaries. And so I was nervous about that going in because she didn't have a particularly strong presidential primary when she ran against, you know, Biden back in 2020. And so I was worried about that not really pushing through popularity-wise.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that that I'll share going forward,
Did
too.
you have something you...
No, I mean, when we were talking about the replacement for Biden before it was really even like a confirmed thing. I think it was like the episode right after the debate where like it's got to happen. Like let's talk about who, and we're like it mostly makes sense to be Kamala.
Yeah.
But
I think legally it ended up having to be because of the way that funds and things are transferred. So there was already so much funding that had gone into the Harris-Wallace ticket. Is what I was told is what
into the Biden-Harris ticket.
Right.
So they had a war chest
they
that
were able
she was
to
the
easily transfer it to her.
Sure.
And then also like have the excuse of like, well, she was on the ticket when you voted her through the primary, so technically you voted for her.
Yeah.
Which yes, but yeah, whatever. It's a
it didn't turn out exactly good. I mean, at this point, like a special like primary would have been better than.
There just wasn't time.
Yeah.
I like fully agree with you, but.
Which we can talk about that a little bit, how we got to that point too, but you said you had some thoughts on...
Well, yeah, so obviously we knew it was the world's most uphill battle from the get-go. And then sometime around mid-October, like when I was hanging out with one of the guys who's like the number of people, he was like, listen, it's just like we're already nearing the end here and it's still just not looking good. Like and we all had like an honest, open heart-to-heart moment, and like that kid was like, I don't think we're winning this. And I was like, I've been feeling that for a while too, but like we have to just like, we can't say that, right? We have to like die on this hill. We have to put everything we have on the field to be able to sleep at night the next day.
And I wonder if it wouldn't have been more beneficial to say that. Like, because like, I think that there was so much of, I can sit this one out because there's so much momentum. Like they kept peddling this we've got this. There's no way thing. And you know, I was looking at the polls and how close it was. I'm like, I don't know. Like I was definitely, you know, nauseously optimistic going into it the whole way, and I was never like silent about that. But a lot of people are like, oh, we're gonna win by 10 million. But like I had people literally tell me it's gonna be crazy. A shutout, and I'm like, there's no fucking way it's going to be a shutout. There is no fucking way.
I will say I was always very transparent about that. Anytime anyone asked me, I would always respond, because this was my opinion on it as well. It's the truest 50-50 we'll ever have. And I can't tell you who's going to win. I don't have a great feeling about it. But to my core, I was like, this is a 50-50. Anyone who says we're winning in a landslide is bullshitting you. Like, I know we all want to say that right now because we all want to believe it. But it is the most 50-50 we will ever see. And it did end up being pretty much the closest we've seen in a while.
Oh yeah.
But it was vibes, right? Like it was we've got Taylor Swift and Swifties are a landslide, and we've got black women organizing, and that, you know, you don't mess with them, and they pissed off the Puerto Ricans, you don't mess with them. And it's like it was all of that. We've got all this mobilization, and there's just no way. And I think it gave the false impression that a lot of people could be complacent in this election about the things that they weren't happy about and just not vote or vote third party or, you know.
See, I guess I sort of disagree. I feel like they talked about those things because they didn't have anything like good to say out of the normal things that normally they would use as indicators. Like the polls were so close, they're like, yeah, because we have Taylor Swift, that's a big thing. Like we're definitely getting an edge there. Yeah, because of Madison Square Garden rally, like the Puerto Ricans are going to turn out in Philadelphia.
Right.
And it's like we just have to have some good news.
I see both sides of this argument because I agree with both sides. On one hand, I'm like, I also was like, why are we not being more upfront and honest about this? Because it is worrying. It is unsettling. And you almost do want, it's not fear mongering when the fear is real.
Yeah.
Right. So you almost do want to like put the fear into the public of like,
Mhm.
we're not as close as we think we are. But then there's also like that we have to remain optimistic and hopeful and get people excited to go out and do this and like get people rallying and not feel like defeated already. So it's like which one's better? I don't know. It just depends on who you are.
I think that there's a middle ground there of, hey, we're optimistic. We can do this, but we can only like. But there is, if one of you stays home, we're not going to win this, you know?
Yeah.
And we will be subjected to 4 more years or potentially
forever.
Unlimited more years of Donald Trump and
question
his
mark more years.
Yeah, question mark more years of Donald Trump if you stay home. And I think that would have been, you know, it's not fear mongering. It's like, we can do this. We have more people than they do.
Yeah.
But our people, they're just fucking lazy, right? They don't get out and vote unless it's the end of the world. The economy's falling apart or whatever it is, like energizing them to get out and vote. And I'm almost wondering if that false sense of, because from all the vibes I got from like my followers and the people who were just like, oh yeah, first black woman president, this is gonna be so cool, and like we've got everybody, women are gonna get out and vote in droves because of abortion and like all this kind of stuff, and like so many people were so blindsided when that didn't happen, and I wonder if that being overly like enthusiastic about how we had it and not being more honest on that was
it is. Yeah, no, I definitely. But I do think that a lot of people just genuinely did think it was going to be a landslide. Like, I do think there was like a weird amount of just, I don't know what to call it. Delusion isn't the right, but like just overly optimistic where like we all felt good about it, right? We all wanted it. And so I do think that a lot of people just did genuinely believe that. Yeah.
But it was the same thing as 2016, right? Where like there's absolutely no way Donald Trump's going to win this. Like this is the most ridiculous thing we've ever heard. Then that's how I felt in 2016. I was on, and that's part of why going into the 2024 election and the 2020 election, I'm like, I don't know. We touched the hot stove once, and I'm not dumb enough to touch it again and like just be overly confident about this.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think probably the larger reason why she lost is the same reason why Hillary lost in 2016, is that Trump was the party of anti-establishment change, which is what people have been wanting since Obama left office.
I think. Yeah, go ahead.
I have theories on this if you'd like to
Please,
segue.
absolutely. Yeah, that's why you're
We've
here,
talked
right?
about our theories ad nauseum.
So obviously there's a number of reasons we lost. Like you can't just say anyone is the
not
right?
one
misogyny,
specific thing.
racism, weird, like the weird approach, the always taking the high road, a million things you could say. But one of the big things was that like there's 2 theories on it. One, the numbers, we just got absolutely destroyed. Like from a digital media front, and we can get into that later after this. From a digital media front, it's laughable. And that is the thing, to your point, it made me frustrated the whole time it was going on that I say that as if I'm part of the Democratic Party. I'm not, but like
the left.
The left, right. We did not take digital media seriously enough, and I was upset about that like the whole time it was happening. Especially the thing that upset me the moment I heard it and like until we lost, which obviously is a small thing, but it was like a bigger indicator, is that Joe Rogan had invited her on his podcast
and she
declined, and that indicated to me that she did not take seriously enough the power of digital media. And then you saw that at the end with all like the fake influencer people like getting, and then people clocked that right away, right? Like the left was panicking and trying to hire anyone they could to flood the digital media. And it was very obvious because we just like a groundhog pop our heads out of the hole randomly for 2 months every 4 years. And it becomes inauthentic and strange, and it doesn't register right. So one of the big things is the digital media numbers.
Well, and I think what you just said there too speaks to the bigger issue with the Democratic Party as a whole, is the inauthentic and doesn't register right aspect of it. Like, we know, being overly obsessed with politics and spending all of our time, looking over all of these things and understanding policy that, for blue collar people and for minorities and for the economy and for the environment, for like literally everything, Democratic policies are better. Now, a lot of things aren't great, but we understand that. But the Democratic Party just assumes that people should know that and, take that for granted, it seems like, and they don't spend their time campaigning to those blue collar people, the rural people, like and then when it's like, okay, we're losing ground with these specific demographics, then suddenly it's just a let's slap on whatever sounds good, whatever's going to work to resonate with them. And I think we really saw that this time with immigration. Their immigration rhetoric was horrible, and we can get into that or not.
Yeah.
But then it comes across as inauthentic and after the fact, an afterthought type of thing, and it doesn't connect with people. And I think that's it really came out on the digital media front this time around. But it's an overarching problem with the way that the Democratic Party campaigns.
One of the things I think we also like struggle with, again, I mean, this is like my main issue. Like, we got crushed in the numbers. They also just like, we're so far behind when compared to the right that we can't figure out at this point how to combat like their presence online, right? The misinformation, the endless podcast, red pill sphere. And even to the point where when I was in Detroit, like I turned on the TV just to watch regular TV, like, because when's the last time anyone watched cable?
No.
Except for in a hotel room that's already paying for cable. Every time the commercial breaks came on, the same 3 ads played 3 times of like, it was like a hit ad against Kamala, being like, Kamala this, she's scary, whatever, woman, something. Trump is this. And I was like, it's insane. I'm sitting in a swing state, and that ad plays 3 times in front of me. I don't see a single ad for the left. And I understand, like, okay, yeah, you could say like no one watches cable anymore, but people do. And also it's just like a signifier of like, we're not pushing in the right places here for me to just be sitting here trying to watch TV and seeing that repeatedly over and over and over. And it was crazy to me. Just the lack of presence on there and the attention to digital media and a large scale too, as like referring to like the popping our heads up randomly. Like, we need a long-term plan that's more steady. Like, Joe Rogan's there 24/7, 365 days a year pushing out that crap. We need people doing that as well.
Yep, absolutely.
I guess I'm pretty much online all day. Like,
yeah,
that's like I'm on YouTube all the time, and I guess I sort of disagree. I am subscribed to probably like a dozen like multi-million subscribing like people. And I mean, sure, like obviously not showing up on Joe Rogan, I think that was a dumb decision. But I don't think it's like their overwhelming saturation of the market that's really the issue, as much as the lack of response to the disinformation and misinformation as a whole. I think there's plenty of creators out there, like Sam Cedar, Brian Tyler Cohen,
but how
More Perfect Media, More Perfect Union.
How
Here's
coordinated
an example.
are they?
I've never
though?
heard those names before.
You've never heard of Tyler Cohen?
No.
Oh.
How about
I've
Midas
heard of Joe
Touch?
Rogan. I've heard of Jake Paul, Logan Paul.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is why the young generation is also like completely fucked. Because we're getting pushed these people harder than anyone else.
I will admit, like, the Tyler Cohens of the world come across much more as like news media. It's suit and tie, standing in front of and that doesn't really come off as podcasting to me. Where
where Jake Paul is just like a fucking YouTube whatever dipshit, and then he also will randomly go off on like but also like racism.
Yeah.
Like,
wasn't he the dumbass doing like the dance with
fight.
Vivek Ramaswamy or
I
whatever?
don't know. I honestly try and avoid him as much as possible, but
you and my dad cannot get his name. I don't know. I think you might be doing it on purpose, but I don't think he is.
Vivek Ramaswamy, is that right?
Ramaswamy.
Or don't give a shit.
He's is he one of the Doge cabinet position people?
Oh, probably.
Him and Musk, right?
Good for him. He's doing it. Living the dream.
All right. So to your point, there is a lot of left-leaning content creators out there, obviously, but we're also in that sphere very purposefully, right?
We live in bubbles, and I think
Yeah.
the numbers that they talked about really opened my eyes to that, because I thought that we had a larger presence, right? Because we go online and we're pushed all that stuff because that's what we consume. But to hear that, like, some of the largest apps are apparently mostly like right-leaning, and I had no idea because I don't see that shit.
Every social media platform is going to peddle right-wing propaganda because it's super easy engagement.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it's
The right-wing
And,
pipeline.
yeah, and we have no
exists.
idea how to combat that.
there,
shit.
there's
what I'm
nothing
saying.
Yeah.
there's nothing easier to get people to share than to have some fucking stupid ass
And they
Hillary
love it.
Clinton's eating babies say amen if you don't
That's
believe that
actually
should
what
be
abortions are now. In
Yeah.
case everyone on the right is
Just-
wondering, it's just Hillary Clinton's in charge of the baby eating department.
It always was.
That was our secret the whole time.
But anyway, they'll put that out in like a meme form, and then you'll have every fucking boomer and Gen Xer apparently like, oh yeah, fucking amen.
I
Share,
heard
share,
about
share.
that actually.
Mhm.
Hillary has been. I saw her doing that.
And so like
That's why Joe's been sniffing babies. It's right. It's so perfect. We actually just started the perfect conspiracy.
Perfect new one.
It's
Yeah,
all lining up.
he sniffs them and be like, "This one's a good one for
Trump,
you. Come
please
eat
hire
this
us
one."
for your team.
That's the post birth abortion there.
Yeah, the post-birth abortion.
Yeah, got it.
What I mean, like, so
Maybe there's a cabinet position for us.
Oh my
The
God.
misinformation.
the misinformation
Mission
cabinet
team?
position.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh
just-
my God.
But I think that this then ties into kind of what I wanted to talk about here is democratic messaging and branding as a whole. Like the right does that really well.
So good at it.
But
Well, it's easy when you're grifting and you can just lie and then nobody has to
And
fact
then
check you.
it's- yeah.
But-
It's a completely different ballgame.
but it's really not. It's really not. Okay, because there's
Right. We could start also lying.
we don't even need to lie.
I don't
Like,
think we could.
we can run the same types of campaigns honestly. I'm not going to say they're clean, but it's honest.
No,
right?
and
Like-
I agree. We need to get a little bit more down and dirty.
But here's the thing.
Slightly.
Here's the thing, and I think that this is part of the problem with the Democratic establishment as a whole, and this extends to us. This is not like a leftist versus Democrat thing. This is just a people on the left are more educated, just statistically more educated, and with that comes a propensity for critical thinking, right? So it's really easy for us to look at issues objectively and not think about them emotionally, or if we do think about them emotionally, it's easier for us to check those emotions and try to think about them logically and make decisions
Part
based
of
on that.
critical thinking is also weighing emotion in with thought. I would like
Absolutely.
to always remind that.
But people, the majority of the population, like just people in general, and I'm not promoting eugenics here at all.
Oh, God.
Just want to get that out
This
ahead
is
of
a
time.
crazy turn. I actually have to go.
Great preface. Yeah.
But just relatively factual observation is that humans stopped evolving as civilization kind of evolved, right? Because we stopped having just hear me out. We stopped having the survival of the fittest, not in the alpha Joe Rogan type of way, but like everybody's allowed to live their lives and have families, and that's great and that's wonderful. But at that point, when we kind of moved into a civilization where we should be thinking about things more logically and less emotionally, is also when we stopped evolving into that process, right? So the human brain is still very emotionally driven. Like we value our emotions more than anything because prior to civilization, if we could be irrationally afraid of something that we didn't need to be afraid of, there was no harm, no foul. But if we were afraid of something and it ended up not being an irrational fear, that could save our lives, right? So our brains are hardwired to value our own emotions and especially fear of the unknown and uncertainty more than anything else. And so that's what I'm getting at. I'm not saying that like we eugenically need to breed out people for being emotionally driven, but that's just a reality of how the human brain works. And Republicans do really great job at marketing and messaging to that. and we are like, hey, here's the facts. Look at this. You should think about this reasonably. And people don't like that. People are like, this is something I don't understand. This is scary. If you just tell me that, yeah, the Mexicans are coming for my job and that's why I can't afford eggs and we deport all the Mexicans and then gas will be free, then that's what we need to do. And that's what makes them feel better. And we don't do that.
Yes, they exploit fear. They fearmonger.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But
It's a really long way to say that.
But we talk about fear mongering all the time, and I don't think people understand, like, because we're like,
Right. There's valid things to be afraid of that you should make people aware of, which is not fear mongering in my book. And then there's making shit up, which is fear mongering.
absolutely,
For attention.
absolutely. But we could still manage, like, all right, if you vote, Republicans are going to make it so your job can pay you less. Like it's going to be harder for you to survive if you don't vote this way. Or we are going to make sure that you have good paying, like when going back to the messaging of like coal country, and they're like, we should re-educate these people so they can get into these new upcoming jobs and industries, and people don't want that. They don't understand that. They're afraid of that. And if the Democrats would just come out and say, hey, we're going to make sure that you have good paying jobs to support your family, and we're going to invest in, rural Pennsylvania to make sure that you guys, and make sure that you can afford eggs and milk and
They did say that, though.
but they said it as in a re-education, like, oh, we're going to educate you.
No, she did straight up say it, and then she would later dive into the ways more technically that she was going to do it.
She said middle class probably
A
100,000
million
times in 3 months, which is impressive.
And making
Never did
life
she
better
really
for the middle class.
expand on how she's gonna do that, other than
She
saying
did. She released an 82-page document outlining
but not in her
economic
speeches.
policy. Yes, she did.
All I heard was opportunity economy.
Yeah.
She talked about cutting, tax benefits for the children, for the single, for the first-time home buyers also.
Yeah.
She talked about going after the big corporations, trying to figure out grocery prices.
But
That
this
was
is
at first. She
this-
got away from price gouging after the first couple weeks.
That's because that's a harder thing.
It is.
That we don't the president doesn't really.
Mhm.
There's not much she can do about that. It was
Besides,
mostly thrown
FTC
in there.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
They
But-
have a direct control over who gets appointed.
What I'm getting at here is you're absolutely right. She released an 82-page thing that who the fuck's gonna read that? I mean, like the people who are already voting for her are gonna go out and read that and be like, yeah, this is great. I love this, And the people who think that the president controls the price of gas are not reading 82 pages of anything,
Yeah.
And then to your point, like putting out specifics on these, like the $25,000 tax credit, great. I thought that would have been great for first-time home buyers. Explaining it that way is just like, we are going to make home buying cheaper for first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
Something just along that way, because
She did do that though. You can find it on her Instagram.
Yeah, and I think that
But you're right.
Bernie
There is
Sanders had a better economic message still in this campaign than she did.
You do make a fair point. Well, she did do that, and I will die on that hill. And people I just feel like people just didn't want to pay attention to her.
Well,
a lot of times. But
it didn't.
we do need to, on a general level, kind of dumb down the masses we're talking to most of the time. But then there was also that rhetoric I think they listened to too hard, where people were complaining about her being too general for a while, in which then she released the 82 pages, and then she switched her speeches to be more technical.
Yeah.
And so it's
And
you fucking complain when she does one thing, you complain when she does another.
I agree.
I think the biggest issue is the fear mongering that the left can do is not against particular people; it's against large institutions and corporations.
I mean, we could have done some serious fear mongering against Trump.
I think Bernie.
I certainly was
Bernie
trying.
had
I
the
don't know
best
about you
message.
guys.
I think Bernie had the best message for
Yeah,
what is hurting most Americans, and it resonates whether you're left or right.
He absolutely did. And this is why I keep going back to we have the formula, right? Because Obama came out. Now, Obama was not a reform candidate once he got into office. He was an establishment candidate. I've got lots of problems with Obama's presidency and policy, but the campaign was on point. Like, it was a very populist message. It had the little bit of detail, and sure, you do the 60-minute interviews and they ask you the questions, and that's where you get into those details. But when you're at the rallies, when you're putting out stuff that people are going to see scroll across their Facebook feed or something, it just needs to be the buzzwords that hit the emotions and nothing else. We don't need numbers. There shouldn't be statistics. There shouldn't be anything like that in those. It just needs to be the quick, easy to remember, the hope and change type of shit that worked, And then we saw it again with Bernie, where it was, he would absolutely get into, this is my plan on how I would do this, but it wasn't that way necessarily at the rallies. It wasn't that way for the sound bites. There was the easy, I can get behind that, I can remember that stuff. And I think that's kind of the thing. Yeah, we want the details for the people who care about that. She absolutely was criticized about that, and that was absolutely a double standard because nobody gives a shit what Trump's policy is.
They're playing two different games, yeah.
But
and we don't have to get into that.
No, but like the thing is, people keep bringing up that double standard, and it's like it is, but it isn't, because you're fighting for, like, he's appealing to a different group of people that 90% of who Kamala was appealing to isn't gonna. Yeah. They're not gonna.
They're never
vote.
Gonna shift that vote.
Right. So it's like we needed to energize young people to get out and vote, which we horribly failed at this election. And we needed to get
for voting left, at least.
Well, I mean, it was still a low voter turnout. I was going to look that up.
Like the young voters shifted like 14 points to the right.
Tie that directly back to the red pill crap, and I see it every day amongst my friends and everyone I hang out with. It's horrible. It's like I could do a 3-hour podcast complaining about the shit I see, even like in my friend group who are on the left, and I'm like, I catch them fucking watching that shit all the time. I'm like, what? How are you getting caught by this? Mm-hmm. They just don't realize it.
Which is crazy to me, because I really thought that Gen Z was going to be the most aware of this, because they grew up like in the digital era, right? But maybe
they've just gotten good at it. Like the right has just, or I don't know. I mean, technically the right isn't technically always in charge of red pill, but they've gotten so sneaky with the lies and shit that you just don't always catch it unless you already know,
Yeah, I mean, back when Jordan Peterson first started, like in whatever 2016ish or something like that, I was like, Jordan Peterson, makes sense. And then like a year later, I was like, how did I ever think that he was like anything interesting or reasonable?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever fell for that longer than a very short period of time, where there's some of those pseudo-intellectuals that come out like very moderate right off the front, and that's how they get you, right? They start off moderate, and then they keep inching and inching and inching and inching to the extreme right side until it's but the people that just don't realize it along the way is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it's upsetting. It's like, it's deeply upsetting to me every day how it's just so common. Like,
it's weird that the millennials are going to be the most like progressive leading generation.
It's sad because they're not that enough.
Right.
Yeah, no, we're not enough. But we are apparently the most progressive generation, which is, it is frustrating, because I had so much hope for Gen Z, and I mean, like, I haven't lost hope on them entirely, but. Right. I'm not feeling great about them.
In this
at
last
the moment.
election, it's certain there's a reason to have lost a little bit of hope that things were going to be big.
I have a theory. Mm-hmm. It's my mother's theory that I'm sure she got off of like MSNBC or something. Also, one, like, we need to put all our resources into like coming up with a blue pill sort of thing, or else we're going to keep losing that younger generation. Mm-hmm. It's going to keep getting worse. I hate to say it, but they need to crack down on that now and figure that shit out. But so my mom told me this, and I thought it was a really hot and interesting take, and a lot of people apparently have been paying attention to this too, because it's almost been like a slow break put on, because like, so we can sit here and theorize all day about what went wrong, right? And the little semantics about this and that, and obviously, like, it was weird that she went to the middle, right? And all of us on the left wish she had gone more left. And we could sit here and complain that, like, she could have picked up those menial amount of Jill Stein voters that didn't show up, right? And it wouldn't have made a overall. We still wouldn't have won,
right? But okay, go ahead. I just have a point to that. The
larger picture is, I think the issue here. And this goes again with like the general public and the anger and the whatnot, and everyone's mad about subscription prices and eggs and gas prices, which they don't understand isn't tied to the president. And so the president is a thankless job that everyone's always going to blame for everything. I forget what the exact number was, but there was about 70 elections this year or something across the world for major parties. And in almost every single
They
one
all
of
shifted,
them,
right?
they got pushed out.
The
And I
incumbent
think,
got pushed out.
yeah,
Yeah,
the incumbents got pushed out and replaced. So I think at the end of the day, we'll see how this goes going forward. But I don't know if anything she changed would have changed that, because I think people are tired and angry, and they wanted to take it out on the party that is in power currently. And I think they fucked around and are about to find out.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we said from the beginning was we thought that Biden was running a crappy campaign, and then she sort of took up the reins and not acknowledging that things were bad, and they're just like, Biden economics or Bidenomics is great, and it's like, sure, like it's good, but you got to explain like why are people still experiencing this high inflation? Why are they still seeing these increased prices, and what are we doing about it? And they never acknowledged that like there was really a lot of hardship, and this is how we're fixing it. Like,
and I think that goes back to the being disconnected from the
Exactly.
regular American.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, yeah, sure, the stock market's doing great, but I'm still struggling and I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And like, you telling me that the economy is great doesn't make my current economic situation any better. What I wanted to talk about on she went to the center, and we're always frustrated that she's not going to the left. And obviously, we have a very biased opinion on this, because all of us would prefer something far more progressive
Far to the left.
than any, we're like, hey, Bernie Sanders, great. Now, if you could take 4 steps to the left of that, we'll be talking, and, but I do think it's this continuous focus of the Democratic Party specifically on the moderate, this mythical moderate that, they existed in the 50s and the 60s and the 90s. Like, the gap between Clinton and Reagan, not that big, right? The gap between LBJ and Eisenhower, not that big. And there was a lot of room in the middle to sway voters on 1 or 2 policies that way. Yeah. Today, there's a Grand Canyon gap between the left and the right, and there's some people that pretend that they're independent, undecided, whatever voters, and those people either don't pay enough attention to fucking care, or they're full of shit and they just don't want to admit that they're Republicans at this point.
Yeah, the middle is almost non-existent now.
Right.
And I do think it's weird that we
hilarious.
keep pandering for that.
Yeah, even CNN was like, in 2020, there was 8% of voters that were registered that decided they were undecided, or like reported that they were undecided. And this year, it was 4%.
And that's what we focused on.
And that's what we
Yeah,
focused
it
on.
is. It's crazy.
I never understood what they said. I was like, then what are we talking about?
Why are we spending
here?
so much goddamn time running to the right to try to capture that tiny little piece of what's just trailing off? And this is where, had we pushed a little bit more to the progressive side, because Trump didn't win the election. Kamala Harris lost the election, right? Like, Trump didn't gain any new voters.
He got literally like exactly 50% of the vote. I think the last time I checked, it was sitting at 50%.
So for popular wins, he was the 44th best winner of a presidential election based on popular vote.
Out of 47. Oh, 46. Wait, 45 now. 45.
Yeah,
46.
The stat that I saw somehow at 51. I don't know how the fuck they got 51, considering there hasn't been that many presidential elections. But like, basically, he's like in the
I guess there's been more presidential elections than that if you're counting incumbent re-elections. So maybe somehow that plays in. I don't know.
I don't know exactly, but basically, he had like one of the lowest possible popular vote wins,
and still somehow won.
And somehow won.
Because
and honestly, that's what I'm saying. I don't think like Trump did all that fantastic.
No.
I think she just like ran a bad campaign, didn't talk about the right issues, and didn't like try to battle the misinformation from the right side at all.
And so what I'm getting at is, had she pushed more to the left on this, and not tried to go after undecided voters, but tried to energize
the left
to actually get the fuck out and vote, because that's where we really failed. And had she tried to energize younger people to get out and vote, had she tried to energize more women to get out and vote, and one of the biggest things that still just boggles my mind is how, and I'm not sure where the breakdown came, but she failed to tie herself to the issue of abortion, because
it was weird. But again, I think that might have been the weird moderate ploy or something. It was, so I noticed that. I was like, at no point did you talk, I mean, she did. She talked about Roe v. Wade, but I was like, we didn't lean into that.
And it
Like
was,
that's
it was
like the big
on
thing.
the ballot in
That's
like 10
literally
states.
the thing
and
that won most places.
that's
7
what
out of
won us
10.
the midterms.
Like, why did we not? And I don't know if they were trying to like lean away from the fact that we're running a woman again, so they didn't want her to lean like too heavily into being like women and reminding that I kind of get from a PR
51% of the
standpoint,
fucking
but
population.
it's
You want to go
ridiculous.
after some votes? Go after the largest part
It's
of the
ridiculous.
population. Like it, and that's what just because abortion on the ballot outperformed Kamala in every fucking state. Every fucking state it was on the ballot, it outperformed her
Ridiculous.
by like
Yeah.
massive amounts of points. Like what was it, 5 or 10 points on average?
5 was like the lower end, and then
I
like
mean,
double digits was the higher
In fairness,
end.
now that I'm thinking about it, they did run the entire reproductive rights tour, like the entire time with her name or her face on it. So maybe we should shut them.
Well,
I forgot
so
about
I
that.
think-
But still, like,
I think it's
say it yourself. You know,
yeah.
like, yeah, you got the tour bus and all the reps
Yeah.
running around in it, but I don't know. I don't know.
There was just something like clearly she didn't
More
effectively
semantics.
tie it, and I don't know why, where that breakdown came from, but it
I
clearly
I
was
also
not.
don't think I think it was an important issue, but I don't think it was the number 1 or possibly even number 2 issue. I think rightfully should have
Must
been the
been.
number 1 issue. Just all across, more white women voted for Trump than for Kamala. So clearly,
55% of white
clearly,
women.
it's not just like a misogyny thing. Like there's a clear amount of
Well,
a
women
particular
can
group
be
of
a
women.
lot of
misogynistic.
internalized
Okay,
misogyny.
Women
yeah.
hate women as well. It's crazy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But this is, while I think it should have been the most important issue, certainly more like highlighted than immigration and potentially more
Yeah, it's
than
just
the economy. But for most voters, like it was a third tier.
yeah, because the
issue.
economy mattered more than women to most people. You're not wrong. That is the reality of what we witnessed.
It's weird to say it that way. Like when you said it, I was like,
Almost everything
like
in this
women should
country
matter
has
more
been
than the
proven to matter
economy.
more than
Yeah.
women.
Well,
at
I
this
mean,
point.
and you think about this coming from Reagan to Clinton, right? The economy's stupid. It's the economy stupid. And to Bush, honestly, because Clinton ran on "It's the economy stupid" was a tagline, and then Bush ran "It's still the economy stupid." Like
it's
that
the
was
economy and you're still stupid should be our next one.
right. I know. So like that was something, but it's always been obviously people care more about themselves than
Yeah.
anything else, right? And this is
Care
where.
more about those eggs than women.
But
Not
they
the
also
women's
care
eggs.
more about those eggs than
Yeah.
the women.
Then I was gonna try and tie it, but I didn't know if that was too many like jokes within a joke. So I let it go.
I'll always run those out till they're no
Okay,
longer
good.
funny. So, but I mean, like, we saw it back with Carter, where Nixon tanked the economy, in somewhat a necessary way, getting us off of the Bretton Woods system and everything, but that had global inflationary implications, and then obviously Nixon stepped down, and there was all of that. So Carter wins, and Carter makes the hard decisions to fix the economic problems. He raised interest rates to get inflation under control, but now people are paying 15, 20% in interest for mortgages and car loans and stuff like that, and people just notice that, and they're like, well, this fucking sucks. But this is what we needed to do, right? And he started structuring everything to rein in out of control energy prices, because OPEC had a stranglehold on the United States, and they were punishing us for Israel and Iran at that point, because nothing's fucking original anymore. Everything's just a fucking rewrite
Recycled over and over.
But all of that, so they're like, oh, this sucks. So then they just elected Reagan because the economy was hurting at the moment, and it was this is a repeat. This is a repeat of Carter and Reagan, the 1980 election. Because Biden came in dealing with record inflation from something partially out of the president's control altogether, and partially because of some really horrible economic policies from Trump. And now he got all of the shitty stuff from that, made some of the harder decisions to fix those things. We're starting to see the fruits of that labor, but everybody's like, well, eggs. And
Well, so like that's why I appreciate that. Like for once, a Democrat was like, "Yeah, like Bidenomics really improved the economy from where I inherited it." But it's still, when you don't talk about how like it's still difficult and we're still like dealing with a lot of the issues, then it's sort of just like out of touch.
yeah, it can be like, we've come a long way at getting inflation under control and making it easier for you to afford your life and support your family, but we still have a long ways to go, and we are going to continue to bust our ass on your behalf to make sure that you can afford all of the things that you want to afford and make sure that your
Right.
family has a comfortable life and you can enjoy the American dream and that middle class experience that, every American deserves. Like, great, right there. Leave it at that. You don't need any fucking details. Like, sweet. They're going to keep fighting for me. And yeah, you know what? Gas isn't as expensive as it was 2 years ago. Cool. Groceries have gotten a little bit more under control. Vehicles are a lot fucking cheaper than they were 2 years ago. Like, everything's coming down if you really start looking at it. But got to message it because people
Yeah.
have the memory of a fucking goldfish.
It's weird because I think the Democrats need to figure out a way to message those things differently, because just saying like, oh, I've created way more jobs than Trump ever did, Trump people don't care.
No. And again, you don't say that. You say, like, we've come a long ways since I inherited this situation, but we still have a long ways to go, and
Yes.
we've got a plan to continue doing
still don't
that.
know that hits all the right notes.
Yeah,
for
because
people.
I feel like she did say that a lot, and it didn't apparently hit.
And again, I think part of it is delivering the message to the people, because obviously you said you're going to the rallies, you were really in that sphere because you were working with some of these digital marketing teams and stuff like that. But like, again, from our perspective, the shit that people see once again was the debate.
The digital is
Mhm.
fucked. Like,
Yeah.
they need to do better on the. Listen, I get the TikTok plan. I
Mhm.
get it. That made sense. The kids are on the TikTok.
Mhm.
We got to figure that out, and
Mhm.
on a larger scale.
I just
And yeah, we can't just come in August and start campaigning right before the election either, which I get wasn't her fault.
no.
But like, Biden
no.
didn't really start until
right.
July either.
And I guess that was
he
one
hadn't
of
been campaigning for a year and a half
No.
like Trump did.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
I
Trump's
guess
been
they were just
campaigning
riding
since
off
like
the fact-
2010, basically, at
Yeah.
this
Right,
point.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
A man's life is a campaign.
right.
Uh,
I mean, and he's just never stopped.
He
never
just
stopped
wants to
going-
rally.
That's all he wants
He's
to do.
out-
Just-
he's
why,
out
why,
here to
why couldn't
puke
we
and
just
rally
been, you know
for
what?
sure.
All right, we won't actually put you in prison or anything. We'll give you a pass, and you can go do your rallies all the time and pretend you're running for president until you die. We don't care, and then you
Listen,
can just let
it's
the
like
adults
I
run the
tweeted
country.
Out like 3 years ago, we put Trump and Kanye on a fake ticket. We
Mhm.
convinced them they won, and then what's his name? Nathan Fielder style, build them a fake White House and live stream it on the internet for 24 hours a day. That would have taken care of all of our problems. They would have believed it. We would have had entertainment and a normal election. But once again, no one listens to the youth.
Oh, what's that Jim Carrey movie?
Cable guy?
No, the one where
Truman
he-
Show.
Huh? Yeah, the Truman
Truman
Show.
Show.
Yeah, we Truman Show his ass.
Yeah, I would have been all for that.
And it would have taken care of him. And he would have been okay with it because he would have been live streamed to people 24/7.
Yep, absolutely. No,
Everyone would have been happy, even if he found out it was fake.
I don't know. He already lived the Truman Show with The Apprentice, so I feel
And
like
he loved it.
yeah, he loved it, but like I feel like he sort of outgrew that sphere. I don't know.
I don't think he outgrew
Well, the point is that he doesn't know, hopefully. And then
True.
by the
Yeah,
time he finds
And
out,
then- and then
the show's
he'll be like,
so
no.
popular,
He'll be
he's
like,
cool
no, it's
with
real.
it.
It's totally real.
No,
Have you
and
seen these
yeah,
ratings? Nothing
exactly.
fake could have these
Nothing-
ratings. Okay,
these
these are the-
ratings are real as hell.
Yeah.
His presidency might be fake, but these ratings are real.
But then,
I'll support the effort for sure.
but then going back to Biden, and so I think we can all agree Biden held out too long. But I don't think Biden ever should have ran in the first place. Like,
No, I think it was.
in 2020, I don't think Biden should have ran. I thought
Oh.
that was because Biden knew he was going to be 476 years old by the next election, right? And there's a lot that can go wrong in that time. Like, you could die, you could be
It's tough because like
I
you
think
look at people like Bernie, who today still
Absolutely.
is like sharp as a tack, and
can,
but
but
you don't
you
know how
don't-
you're gonna
you
degrade.
don't run 'em.
You don't know how you're gonna degrade.
No,
I think that both times it was the same scenario where no one else was stepping up to the bat. Like everyone, I think president is a thankless job. I don't know if anyone really wants to be the president. If you're already in politics, like, right, like everyone's like AOC, and she's like, no, I'm good. Like, I like what I'm doing. Don't want to do that. Maybe someday, not. And everyone's like, yeah, you're doing more there. Like, presidency is an ass job.
Mhm.
And I think that the thing was that back, like, people were desperate. We were looking for someone, and they were like, all right, he ran under Obama. Let's run him, like Kamala style almost. And then this time around, yes, it was a mistake that we didn't go looking harder earlier.
But,
That's
like,
ridiculous. But it's also probably was like a
I mean,
same scenario.
Didn't Buttigieg ran, right?
Yeah, but people
I-
didn't vote for him.
I think it was
Right.
I
But
think
but
we
would
had
they
the
have
same-
if Biden hadn't stepped up? Because like here's the thing: in 2020, a flaming pile of dog shit would have beat Donald Trump, right? Like there was basically no way because Biden ran a shitty campaign back in 2020. He won, but he won again because the world was literally on fire, and everybody wanted something different.
I do agree that earlier on, like a year and a half ago or two,
Mhm.
he should have made it known that he had no interest in doing it again and forced them to start looking for
primary.
someone better,
But
as
what-
opposed to like everyone competing again. I don't know.
we
you know?
squandered our incumbent advantage because incumbents generally win elections. Now, obviously, there's been a few times Trump didn't, but again, Trump took a relatively thriving economy, and then took that into a pandemic, which was obviously no matter who was in office was going to be dealing with that shitstorm. But his policies didn't help. He's not a particularly likable guy to begin with. And so, like, that's one of those kind of rarities where the incumbent didn't win. But generally, an incumbent wins. Even George Bush.
I think that Biden would have had no shot of winning.
No. I
Oh,
don't. I don't
okay.
think.
was like, is that what you're getting at? 'Cause
No, I'm
that's a
getting
horrible
at the
idea.
fact that he was so fucking ancient when he ran the first time that
Yeah.
knowing that.
Well, again,
There
I
was a-
think he was like a temporary pick. Because he even said wasn't there like a clip of him being like, I don't plan on running for a second term at some point. Again, I think we ran down the clock. It came back around and they were like, fuck, we're going to have to run him again. I really don't look at that man and tell me that he still wants to be there.
No.
The second Kamala took over, he was at an
I
ice
don't
cream shop kicking his little feet on that stool.
Genuinely think he even knows where there is anymore.
I don't
but-
agree with that whole false rhetoric. But yeah,
he's
he
a
is
little
far
slower
too
on
fucking
the
old to be
speaky
there.
speak, but I think he's mostly there in the head as far as like what he still wants to do.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Again,
I think that he's still sharp. I think he's just old, and also that means he shouldn't be running anymore. Like no one above the age of 65 should be running.
No, it
but
should be
that's
like
a
pilots. You
conversation
can't
they're
be-
not
you
ready to
can't
set
be-
rules around.
You can't be a commercial pilot over the age of 65.
Oh,
but you
well,
can.
then there you go.
You can.
You can't fly a plane. You shouldn't fly the country.
Yeah, exactly. and that's what's fucking insane to me. But
It's difficult because there's still good people running.
There
in
No
the
is.
one's
country
saying
at
there
60.
aren't. And like, yeah, my mom's unfortunately as sharp as a tack at her age, at like I think 64 or something. I'm not doing the math here. Her birthday was yesterday.
happy birthday,
Shout out.
Andra's mom.
Or maybe 2 days ago. Time is an illusion at this. I called her. I remembered it. I just all the days blurred together. But like, that doesn't mean that they should like.
Right.
I always say something a little bit fucked up, but if you don't have a future in the country, I don't think you should be running it
Yeah.
and making the decisions for it.
100%. No,
Like if you're on the way out, like it
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
I mean, the life
setting the rules for the
expectancy
people on the
is
way
in
in.
its 70s now, so like.
Yeah, so 5 years isn't crazy. Isn't enough.
I'm not saying like you should be running at 70 or 75, but I mean,
I think 65. You can run at 65, and so and let's say you get elected.
Yeah, and then call it a day.
But and so let's say you get elected at 65, you could serve your 8 years. Like you could run for as long as you're an incumbent running at that age. you
Yeah,
can
we'll
run.
give an incumbent an excuse on the
And-
hour of
and-
desperation.
We'll literally grandfather it in.
Yeah,
okay.
we'll allow it if it's desperate.
yeah, I mean, this is gonna go places for sure. This rule.
Do you think anything's gonna go places in the next?
I think
I-
this
I love
country
how
is going to
people are
go
all
into
immigrants are gonna
garbage.
go
Oh,
places.
they're definitely going places.
Fortunately.
Oh man,
Just like the military members
No.
are going across the country. It's gonna happen.
I love the optimism of people
And
who are
we're
like the
all
next
going
4.
to Canada.
Yeah. I love the optimism of how people are like, oh, the next 4 years are gonna suck, and I'm like, honey, I hope it's the next 4 years. But like, we're
I
looking
can't
at
even say it. Like I can't even think about it.
it's
I can't.
it's even
I'm
if
taking every day at a time here at this point. Are you kidding me? Dr. Oz fucked up yesterday, all right? Let's
Oh
see what's
my
happening
God.
today.
even if it's straight up idiocracy, but even if even if he, doesn't completely undo democracy and we have an election in 4 years, it's not like the Russian-style Putin elections.
In the best case scenario.
Best case scenario, right?
He doesn't destroy democracy.
Right. In the best case scenario, we are still going to be dealing with the repercussions of this
for the rest of our lives. Our lives,
absolutely,
for sure.
Absolutely, 100%. Because it's like, again,
he's going to destroy shit.
We're still
sure.
dealing with the repercussions of Reagan, and now it hasn't been getting any better since then, and now it's about to get a whole lot fucking worse. I'm like, 4 years, like...
My hopeful conspiracy is this. Okay, so this is like when I blow out the candles on my birthday cake, this is what I'm thinking about. So obviously he and Elon, they're going to implode and kill each other, right?
I cannot wait for that.
For sure. And we're all watching.
It's going to be the best Hollywood drama in so long.
Here's the best case scenario of that for me. They make mortal enemies of each other, right? Because it's not gonna go smooth, right?
No.
And I will acknowledge, you don't want to make an enemy of Elon Musk, because I think that the only man that maybe could like just fucking destroy Trump is probably Elon Musk right now. So they make mortal enemies of each other, right? And then Elon spends the next 4 years just fucking ruining Trump's life. And then they just play a cat and mouse game most of the time that really slows some of the shit he's going to do.
I mean, I hope that's true. I honestly will be surprised if Trump makes it 6 months into his presidency before they 25th Amendment him and, crown J.D. Vance as the new king of the world.
Where has J.D. been?
I don't know.
Thank you. Can we talk about the elephant that's not in the room?
Well, not this, not, we can, not this particular episode, though, because we are running out of time.
Yeah, not today.
And we have next week's guest is a market expert, a market analyst expert, something like that.
Yeah, you're really showing that we did a lot of research for this
really
particular
person.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was doing a market research expert. That's what it was. A market research expert doing market research on the election. Very cool guest coming up. I think Andra is going to help us with that one as well. So tune in next week. Again, if you guys want merch to support the podcast, you can get us on the Patreon, on YouTube subscriptions. You can buy merch at offjawaggon.com. Go follow Andra, and we will see you next week.
That's right. Thanks for tuning in.